Push it! Welcome to Films in Black and White, everybody. Welcome to Films in Black and White, everybody.
Let's keep it
Horn mouth is just air horn mouth. Gross to hear that music in my ear.
I haven't set up my new laptop with the soundboard, so I have to like figure everything out again.
To be honest, I'd really consider whether or not you go back.
Oh,
I mean,
okay,
the mouth horns are now iconic. However,
You know
you
what they
feel
say.
It's
about
really
that.
true.
Once you go mouth horn, you don't go back.
Okay, well, welcome to Films in Black and White. Welcome to Films in Black and White, everybody. I am coming to you live from Orlando, Florida. Because I am here for a conference, and I'm happy to be here. It's been a great day, but I'm happy to be with my guys. I'm happy to be with my crew. And let's get right into it. So let's kick it on over to one Marcus Thompson. Marcus, I'm noticing a different last name today. What's going on there?
Yes, I decided to take the last name of my wife, Tessa Thompson. So I am now Marcus Thompson, and address me as such, or I will get upset because I put respect on my wife's name.
I'm so sorry, Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, appreciate that.
I hope there's not going to be like some Chris Rock, Will Smith scenario if I mess it up today.
There might be. I am feeling very Will Smithy today, so just be careful, everybody.
Well, thankfully you would have to come to Florida, so I feel
That's
empowered.
true. And how many flights does that take?
That's two. Two flights from South Dakota.
Two flights.
That's two flights.
Solid icebreaker when you're.
But no, we are here. I have a lot to get through today because Marvel and this Marvel fatigue. But we're here. You know what I mean? And I'm doing all right. So
yeah, good. Glad to hear it. And let's second, but certainly not least, one mighty Brian. Brian, how are you today, sir?
Hello. I'm just so elated to be here. I took a week off of work last week, and today was my first day back, and so there was just a lot going on. I was talking to Marcus Thompson before the podcast started.
Thank you.
Just lots of stuff, and just basic communication can go a long way. I'm finding in my new job that I'm like an air traffic controller of feelings and messages, which is not what you expect. So it's a good role for me though. But there was lots of communicating and are we on the same page and all that stuff. So I'm very happy to be in a space where I know we're all on the same page and we can just talk about this movie and get into the guts of it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's
interesting.
I love getting in the guts.
It's true. Oh, God.
Or the
Why
rocks.
did you say it's true?
The rocks, the guts, the God sword.
Because you've been on record as being that way.
Yeah.
So
it's confirmed.
It's absolutely confirmed. But
Be
gentlemen,
I want to say something. Hold on, give me.
Please.
Oh wait, I forgot.
Already?
Sorry, my bad. No, yes, it's your turn, Doug. Sorry.
Yes.
How are you doing, Douglas?
I am doing quite well. Like I said, I'm
Yes.
here in Florida for a conference, Anthology Together 2022. It's been a great past 36 hours. So I did something bold, and I landed at 2:50 p.m. Eastern time and went straight to the hotel and then straight to Epcot after that, and tried to do as much Epcot as I could in 6 hours. And y'all, it was a good day. It was a great day. I have more on that later. I got to try out the new Guardians of the Galaxy ride, and I have a lot more on that later. I'm just happy to be here. So Marcus, take it away.
Doug is living. Shout out to Doug out there.
I'm trying to
doing the damn thing. Now, how did your body feel after getting off the flight and then going straight to Epcot?
I gotta be honest with you. Mistakes were made. It was a great day, but I can tell you that after riding essentially 3 thrill rides in close proximity, after everybody, two flights. Two. Count them.
It'll be a pop quiz at the end of this podcast.
How many flights does it take?
Flights does it take?
after being on that, and here's the other thing, like my flight was at 8, but I was up early, as you are. That happens. You know, you get up early when you fly because your body's ready to do it. And so I got up at like 5:30 so I could start, like I ate breakfast and then I went to the airport because the Sioux Falls airport, you can just like walk in and they're like, hey, welcome. You're going on a plane today? And I'm like, you're not going to ask me anything else? So like, no, you're here to fly. So that's fine. And so I went, but the last thing I ate was like at 11 o'clock. And I don't know if you know this, but it's not great to like go on thrill rides on an empty stomach.
Oh,
Your body does not like you. So it took me a minute. To kind of get into the rhythm and to not have my body not hate me. But it was good. It was fun. It's well worth it. But that's a very good question.
I'm glad you're doing all right.
I was good. Yeah.
Well, and Epcot too, like Epcot is just so weirdly designed because they were really trying to do something, but it's just all concrete. It's just concrete for days. And then it's like, hey, walk around this giant lake. So you can't go directly to any of the different country areas. Yeah. So like, it's just, you're walking, like you're getting your 20,000 steps that day, whether you like it or not.
Yeah. I think when I looked,
sounds like Busch Gardens.
A little bit.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I feel like when I looked at my watch at the end of the day, I had walked like 7 miles. Yeah, and that's after 2 plane rides. Like that's because Brian, to your point, you're like, oh, you're in Mexico and you want to get to Great Britain? Strap on those shoes, asshole, because you're walking. Like,
there's no direct how it works. There's nothing to get. There's no way to go the way the crow flies.
Yeah, no.
You made that decision. You know what you're here for.
Well, yeah, of course. Well, I knew what I was getting into. It's fine.
You knew what you were getting into.
It's absolutely
the galaxy.
Before we get started, I do want to tell everybody to make sure that you are following us on our socials. Follow us on Instagram at Films in Black and White on Instagram. Sorry, I was about to do the mantra. Follow us
also follow the mantra, but
that's later. But follow us on Instagram at Films in Black and White. Then also follow us on Twitter at FilmsNB_W. And then also follow us on TikTok at Films in Black and White, where we 3-man a TikTok, and you just never know what you're going to see.
We are the Thruple of TikTok.
We are. And while you're at it, also make sure that you join our Patty family. Watch every episode live before it drops. Sign up for the Patreon at patreon.com/films in black and white. That's at patreon.com/films in black and white.
And I just want to add one thing here. I had somebody ask me, why would I join the Patreon to see the stuff live? And the reason I'm going to tell you this is because you can be part of the conversation right now. If we're talking about Thor Love and Thunder and you're like, hey, what about this? And we don't talk about it. You can join the Patty family. Type that out. We're gonna see your message.
We're gonna,
I believe Logan Rott has dropped by as part of the Patty family. Chris Schultens, a ton of other people, and we answer your questions right away. So that's a great reason to join, and you get to be part of this community. We'll respond. We'll figure this out, and you know whether. all the things we're gonna get into with Thor Love and Thunder.
Also, I would like to mention that it is great to be a part of our Patty family because you get to submit a quote to us for us to guess. And one of our Patty family members, we're not going to do a quote this week because just things happened, but Roman Myers has pledged that he will donate, what was it, $10?
I think he said $10.
Yeah. So he's going to, every time we read a quote of his, and if we get it right, he's going to donate $10 to a charity of our choosing. And I just want everyone to start submitting quotes. So in order to do that, you got to be a part of the Padley family. So be philanthropic and join the Patty family, will you?
Yep.
So
I do have the quote. If we need it,
never mind.
Prepared.
Yeah,
I do have the quote.
Let's do it.
Okay, give us that quote. I have it from the email. All right, so everybody, it is time for Catch That Quotable.
Catch That Quotable.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, y'all. All right, here we go. I am pulling up the thing right now.
Okay.
As of right now.
This is great for audio. Okay.
Yep. Okay, here we go. Is everybody ready?
Yes, I am
This
ready.
is from one Roman Myers.
All right, Roman.
And as we're straddling from one deal to the next, who's got his eye on the planet? I know what this is. I know exactly what this is. As we are straddling from one deal to the next, who's got his eye on the planet as the air thickens, the water sours, and even the bee's honey takes on the metallic taste of radioactivity? And it just keeps coming faster and faster. There's no chance to think, to prepare. It buys futures, sells futures when there is no future. Would you like me to read it one more time?
No, because I'm not gonna get it.
Okay. All right. One more time for our guest.
Yeah, read it
for
again.
it. All right. And as we're straddling from one deal to the next, who's got his eye on the planet as the air thickens, the water sours, and even the bee's honey takes on the metallic taste of radioactivity? And it just keeps coming faster and faster. There's no chance to think, to prepare. It buys future, it sells future when there is no future. I know what this is. So
I want to guess. I'm glad you know what it is, but I want to guess as to what it is. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is clearly a like end of times movie, right? It's got to be, right? Because I mean, otherwise, or
I mean, it
feels like I also feel like this has fucking Zack Snyder written all over it, and that's why he
got
it.
Whoa!
This feels like
all this energy coming from Florida.
This is well, it's Florida. This is just the type of energy you get.
You're a Florida man.
Yeah,
right
I'm a Florida man today.
Don't forget your Trump flag.
Oh. Okay.
I don't know it.
Okay, here's my guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is this Superman Returns? The brand?
It is not. Okay. It is not. That's a great. I definitely see how you got there. Brian, did you have any guess? Did you want to try?
Jupiter. It's the one with the cat ears. Jupiter Ascending. I don't know.
Oh, I like that movie too. He did have cat ears in there.
Yeah, but it's obviously something about the planet, and we're corrupting the planet, and the antagonist is hurting the planet, and I don't know what is hurting the planet, and it's the substance is gonna I'm gonna kick myself. What is this movie?
Okay. This is so funny because it's one of my favorite movies, but it scares the fuck out of me every time. This is The Devil's Advocate.
Oh,
this is when Al Pacino is talking to, and somebody can confirm for me. But Al Pacino is talking to Keanu Reeves, I think, and there's this guy who's jogging who works for the law firm, right? Yeah. And I think it's the scene where the guy is being chased by Al Pacino. Spoiler alert: Al Pacino's the devil. So, I mean, I don't know if anybody knew that, but yeah. So Al Pacino's the devil, but so there's this guy that's jogging who is a part of the firm who threatened Keanu Reeves. Okay. And he's being chased while he's jogging, ends up getting killed by two homeless men because basically the devil sets him up to die. And he threatened, you know what I mean? Like the devil literally made a phone call, was like, go get what's his name? I need him page. And then two homeless people who are also devils or demons kill this guy. Because he keeps saying, what the fuck is that guy's name? His name is John. The character in is John. There's John something, John Bertanani or John. There's a million John Bertananis. There's a million running into the future and blah 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 blah. Like, yeah. So I don't,
all right.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is. Yeah. It is. Yeah. He cut out the Roman cut out the first
Eddie Barzoon.
Smart.
Yeah, I feel like all right.
Okay,
there it is.
Marcus.
Yeah, that was good. I got it.
Marcus, that was solid, man.
Thank you.
Well,
thank you.
You know, Roman, that's one. You come out the gate giving us incentive to get it right, and that's all the incentive we needed.
You put money on the line. I guarantee Marcus is gonna show up every time. I guarantee.
We're not gonna guess quotes right for free. We're gonna when there's a little bit of stank in the game, we're gonna make it work. So
if it's good, why not charge?
That's a great
Marcus
point.
had so much confidence that I chunked it. I mean, I went with a Wachowski film. Like, what am I doing over here? Like, it's a classic Devil's Advocate. So I hope you all were entertained by that, especially Roman.
And I apologize for the hostility I brought to it being
it's okay.
Potentially a Zack Snyder movie.
No, don't apologize.
Yeah, well, maybe we should apologize. Anyway,
that's hilarious.
All right.
Well, gentlemen, we have a movie to get into.
Yes, we do.
This week, we saw Thor, Love and Thunder.
Yes,
there
we
it is
did.
there for our Patreon members.
Wow.
There on the screen and
What a
all of
poster.
its 80s glory. And so we are going to get into it. But Marcus, would you kindly?
No, I would like Doug to do it because he's read the comic, and Doug
Jesus.
and Brian can split it because you both have read it.
That's
so
true. That's true.
I mean,
I would like you both to split it.
Doug, I'll follow your lead, or I'll pick up wherever you want to stop.
Okay, yes. I will do my best. So what had happened was there's this guy on an alien planet, and he's with
Is
his daughter.
A me interpretation, or you really doing the thing?
I think
it's a mix of both.
I think I'm doing the summary.
All right.
So that's fine. I'm not doing an accent, so we should all be okay with that.
That's all right. That's all right. No AAVE is being used. Look at Brian. Brian said, I no longer want any parts of this.
He's like, I am now resigning as a member of Films in Black and White.
If Brian says,
yeah, we're going to talk about Thor: Love and Thunder. Don't you dare do an AAVE accent. What is happening?
Yeah.
Look, if I hear Doug go yo 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 and before shiggity, I'm gonna lose my goddamn mind.
All right, what's papping?
Oh God, this podcast is gonna be just called Films in White on White. That's it, nothing else.
That's a bad podcast. Don't listen to that one. Don't listen to our don't unsubscribe to that one. All right. What had happened was there's this alien on another planet, and it's just desert. Like this whole planet is dead. And essentially this alien is with his daughter, and he is trying to keep them alive, and he's praying and hoping that his God shows up to basically save him. And what ends up happening is his daughter dies, and so he feels this calling to what looks like an oasis in a desert. And so he gets there, and he actually finds the God that he was praying for. And he was like, yo, man, yeah, you're here. Thank goodness. Like, you're here to save me. And essentially the God is like, I don't give a shit about you, basically. Like, I don't care you at all. And what the God says is like, oh, we just were able to kill the person who is carrying, this sword that is, what's the name of the sword again, Brian?
It's like a necro sword.
The necro sword. So yeah, he's carrying the necro sword. We were able to bring him down, and so that's when Gore, we find out the alien's name, played by Christian Bale, hears the calling of the necro sword, picks it up, kills his God, and that in that moment is essentially that's where he decides that all gods must go away. And so that's kind of where we leave it. We then jump to Thor hanging out with the Guardians of the Galaxy, kind of being a little bit more like reserved and a little bit more like waiting to be called in to actually help than actually like being sort of certainly different than the Thor like first movie where he's a little bit more arrogant and a little bit more braggadocious, definitely more reserved, going through it, for lack of a better word. So he gets this interpretation. He gets this message from Lady Sif that there's this person, Gore, the God Butcher, is here. Someone has to come help. So he and Korg leave the Guardians and they go help. And essentially that's when they learn more about the God Butcher. They also then kind of intersplice this with finding out what Jane Foster is doing. And we find out that Jane Foster is desperately trying to figure out how to cure herself of the cancer that she's been afflicted with. Spoiler alert, by the way, like I haven't given anything major away to this point, but halfway through the summary, you should probably turn back if you have not. Put a pin in this from now on.
It's too late. If you're here, just stay here. Don't go anywhere.
It's too late. Anyway, so Jane's trying to cure herself of her cancer, and she sort of gets this idea that like if she picked up Mjolnir, she reads it from some of these North mythology books that she had like sitting in her lab. She kind of finds out like if I pick this up, it might heal me. Like, and I might be able to beat this cancer because it's stage 4 and nothing I'm doing is working. And essentially I need to be making final plans. So she goes to New Asgard. That's where we pick it up with Marcus's wife, Tessa Thompson. Sorry, Marcus Thompson, Tessa Thompson, his wife. Marcus Thompson. That's right there. And so we pick it up where she is being sort of president of New Asgard, and they have built this whole shrine to the foundation of New Asgard, which comes from the end of Thor Ragnarok. They've also encased where Mjolnir was destroyed and where it was basically broken apart. And so without giving too many things away and to sort of bring this on home as far as a summary is concerned. So Jane is able, the Mjolnir reassembles itself and she becomes Mighty Thor, as a comic reference. And then it's sort of the story of how Jane, Thor, and Tessa Thompson are like, they journey across the universe to try to beat Gore the God Butcher and stop him from getting to the center of the universe where he can wish to make all gods go away. And that's sort of the overall gist of the movie. What did I miss?
No, that's the gist.
That's the gist of it. Some kids got kidnapped, but that's pretty much it.
In there. Yep. You're right. That's the motivation.
The Guardian, nice vignette, but that's the gist.
Hey, that's awesome. Good. Look at that.
Your job, Doug.
Hey, thank you. So this is, as far as like cast is concerned, there's not a lot of new folks that are in this. This is very much the same people that we've seen before. Mm-hmm. So Chris Hemsworth is Thor. Tessa Thompson is Valkyrie. Jane Foster. What's her name?
Oh, Natalie Portman.
My God.
Natalie Portman. Ooh, see, Florida's gotten to me. Natalie Portman. That's going to be my excuse for the rest of the podcast. It's got me. Natalie Portman is Jane Foster, Mighty Thor. The big two in here that are a reveal would be Christian Bale plays Gore the God Butcher, and then fucking Maximus Decimus Meridius himself plays Zeus. Mr. Fat Fingers himself has played Zeus. And so we've got Russell Crowe, who've got Mr. Road Rage himself.
Oh my gosh, we watched that. Yeah,
we did.
Ryan, we did. I turned to Marcus in the theater and I said, the last time we saw him was in that movie. So Russell Crowe plays Zeus, but much of this is like same people. Like there's not a lot of introduction. All the Guardians are the same, voiced by the same. So so that's a little bit of a rundown of the cast. Do either of you have any report on box office numbers yet? I didn't see that today in my research.
I do.
Okay.
I'm gonna bring it up here.
Fantastic.
In the meantime, as I'm pulling up the official numbers, there was like a lot of Twitter speak about like, oh no, this movie only made $27 million on Thursday night previews. It's not going to turn out well. And I was like, 27 million on previews alone is like, that's wild. Like that's what people like wish for. Okay. Globally, this opened to 302 million on a $250 budget. So congratulations. You're already making your money back one weekend.
You did it.
I mean, as if we expected anything, we expected anything else. So it debuted domestically with 143 million. So a lot of like global sales here basically doing equal lifting. It's the best opening for a Thor movie. And we can do analysis later, but those are the hard numbers.
That's fantastic. Gentlemen.
Did this come out when it was supposed to?
No,
it did not.
Yeah. Did they get pushed back?
So. I'm pulling that up now. Thor Love and Thunder was supposed to be out November 5th, 2021.
So not crazy far back, but still an 8-month delay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So. And Brian has some good points that we'll point out in my Marvel rabbit hole tangent about
I'm ready.
How close these release dates are, but I'll get into that after we talk about
we do need to talk about that.
Love and Thunder.
But gentlemen, let's start off as we usually do with what did you all thoughts on this? What did you think? What was your reaction? How did you feel about it? Just right off the jump.
Well, Marcus was talking right before we started that he felt like he was right about stuff or like he expected some stuff. So Marcus, do you want to start with that?
Oh my God. Well, it didn't have anything to do necessarily with Thor Love and Thunder as an individual film.
But okay, then we can save that for later.
Yeah, I'll save it for later because that's gonna be a part of the Marvel tangent. What I will say is that I do want to apologize because I made a TikTok where I was rating where what movies went where out of the last 6 movies in Phase 4, and I did put Ragnarok. I did say that this movie was better than Thor Ragnarok, and then I went and rewatched Thor Ragnarok. And it's a little bit better. It's not like miles ahead greater. Thor Ragnarok just does something story-wise with the amount of characters that they have really well. And I think I was just on this Thor Love and Thunder high because it was the first time I felt like, oh, thank God it was a good Marvel movie that I didn't have to work hard to, consume or anything. You know what I mean? Like, it was just like, oh, thank God.
There was no connective tissue to cut through. Like that's one of the things that I think this movie does well. And I would even say to a certain extent, kind of building off of Ragnarok's success a little bit too. This movie had no like, well, you better have caught up on like it kind of dumped you and was like, no, you can pick this up right now, and that's it's going to be just fine. So
this could have been a lot of people's first Thor movie. If let's say they didn't watch anything before, right? This could be a lot of people's first introduction into Thor, and he's a completely different character, like Doug said, from this film and the first film.
Oh yeah,
so it's really interesting. So I didn't have to work too hard. I like the story that it told at its skeleton, although it's based off the comic book. But I also like the actors. Everybody balanced well. I didn't think personally. I didn't know what to think about Natalie Portman, but she ended up killing it. So I'm glad they wrote her and that character the way that they did.
Yep. I would agree with that. Brian?
Yeah, I mean, I loved it. I was writing about this online. Like this movie felt like this is exactly what I expected. It felt like it was made for me. Like I'm officially like in the Taika fan club. Like he just, I don't know. He just gets this character. And I shared this with Maggie. When I started in the MCU, I was like, man, Iron Man, he's so cool. Cap's my guy. But like Iron Man's so cool. Cap's my guy. And Thor's whatever. He's there.
Yeah.
And now I just, this character has evolved to the point where it's examining these stories about family and friendship and what that actually means, that I'm like, okay, I'm like really vibing with Thor right now. And I feel like this movie is a testament to it because it just makes it, I don't know, it is zany at times. Like the jokes are off the wall. The humor is very specific, but so is basically everything else happening around Thor. I mean, we've turned New Asgard into a tourist destination with theme park rides, and he then rides Stormbreaker like a witch on a broom, and it all works. Like it all works. It's zany and fun, but it still focuses on these like super serious concepts. Like he tricks you in being like, this is going to be a space Viking slasher, and then all of a sudden it's like, anyway, when we're faced with our own mortality, it matters who you love rather than what you do. And I'm like, and it just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
That's a great point. I will say this. I think in addition to sort of there not being any connective tissue that you have to sort of sort through with this one.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I really appreciate about the movie and I really liked was I appreciate the overall like aesthetic that that Taika has managed to like achieve with this. I mean, having this be Korg like updating the story of Thor like periodically throughout the movie, and that being a major beat. I thought sort of the energy surrounding the whole film was really, really well done. I have one thing that kind of stuck with me that I had a hard time with, but overall, like this was really well done, and I appreciate the overall vibe the movie had. Like it was a good ride. Like there was I wasn't disappointed. I wasn't looking back going like, oh, I wish they would have done this, but it was good. It was good overall.
I mean, I enjoyed it a lot. This is a 1980s fantasy poster as a movie. And that is what I expected. That's what I wanted. And that's exactly what I got, and a little bit more, in all fairness.
This is a Lisa Frank folder.
Yes.
This is a Lisa Frank folder cover, but make it superheroes. That's all this is.
Yeah, Frank. Pretty much. Like, and I dig it. I dig pretty much everything top to bottom. I had 2 qualms with it, but they weren't like game breaking. And I really liked Natalie Portman in this. I know some people felt like some of the humor with her fell flat, but I also feel like the character of Jane Foster is this hyper nerd. Like she is not someone who is charming. She is not like the first time you meet Jane Foster, she's trying to teach you something. Like that's what her shtick is. Like when we first meet her in the original Thor, she's trying to teach people about Einstein-Rosen bridges. Like, and
she's doing the same thing here.
Exactly. And that's how she opens the movie. She's like teaching people about wormholes. Like she's not someone like Thor that's like, hey, Vasti, like, how are you? I don't know. That's not a good Thor accent, but that's like, who's a pirate?
That was good.
That was a good Thor. I wasn't disappointed.
Well, that's the character of Jane Foster. Like, and that's even part of her arc. She's like, what's my catchphrase? Like, only a hyper super nerd would be thinking about this stuff. Like that's who Jane Foster is, and I enjoy that.
Yeah. That's a great point. I think one of the things that I wish, here's my wish for, this is the one thing that I think I have feelings about the Jane Foster Mighty Thor.
Let's do it.
And again, spoiler alert.
We got stuff to talk about with Mighty Thor.
I feel like this is an example, unless there's something bigger planned with that second post-credit scene.
Yeah.
I feel like we kind of wasted her.
Maybe. I mean, I wouldn't say she was wasted, but go ahead. What do you mean?
Wasted might be being a little too harsh, but I would say I wanted more of her.
Yeah.
It still felt like, for a majority of the movie, with the exception of the last 15 minutes, she's in Thor's shadow for the majority of this. And what I appreciated about what I like about her comic book run is that she's by herself. Like, this is she is Thor. Like, that is we are centrally focused on her story. And I do feel like there are at times where they focused more on her as a coupling to Chris Hemsworth's Thor than it was as her own single identity. And that's again being very nitpicky, but it's kind of something that I noticed.
I think it's worth noting, though, because I think in the comics, and not to make it all about the comics, but comics does give her more agency, because that setup is like Thor is not Thor Odin's son, who I'm going to refer to as the traditional Thor. Thor Odin's son is not worthy to wield the hammer at that point in the comics, and they make it very clear. And Jane, who becomes Mighty Thor, is worthy. And so, like, there's that dichotomy with that original story. I don't mind how this one came about, because I think you can play with the idea of, like, multiple people are worthy to carry this hammer, and what does that mean, and what does that look like? And I think that's fascinating.
That too. I also have
I have a question about that. Because technically she wasn't worthy. Thor told Mjolnir. I have a bad tongue. Thor told the hammer to protect her. Do what when they were in a relationship, he whispered to the hammer, "Hey, do what you can to protect her." Blah 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 blah. When he was in love with her, and it held that secret. So to me, I don't know. Does the rule still apply when she approached the hammer, because she can't pick it up? The hammer came together itself because it saw her in need. Does that still deem her worthy, or is it just following through with what Thor said?
Also, my question.
My read on that was he did, like, drunk. By the way, got to take a moment here. I loved the montage of the relationship. I think that is probably one of the best points of the movie. I also think Avengers, like any Avengers character, is at its best when they show them as a fish out of water in normal life. It happened with Falcon and the Winter Soldier. It happened in Age of Ultron when they're just hanging out. Like, those moments are really precious, and I'm really happy they built that in retroactively from a continuity standpoint. But when he was drunk talking to his hammer, it just glowed the Norse symbol. Like, it didn't. Like, that was unclear to me exactly what happened, other than it was like, okay, I'll protect Jane.
Right, real quick, there. So in the first Thor, when his father whispers to the hammer, "Whosoever be worthy of this hammer," I think that same symbol pops up.
It absolutely did. And it was the words inside of the symbol.
It was the words inside of the symbol. So when Thor's father, when Odin whispers to the hammer in the first one, after Thor becomes unworthy, he tells him, whoever deems this, whoever wields this hammer that is worthy, they get the power of Thor. And then he sends the hammer out to wherever it goes.
Right.
That same thing happened in this case, because Thor is technically the king of Asgard, and he is now Odin.
That Trinity symbol on anything. That is a Norse contract, and you should get a lawyer involved.
He can enchant. Well, I mean, Nordic is better call Nordic
guys. Nordic symbols are legally binding. That's the way I interpret it.
Better call Nordic Saul.
Yeah, better
Nordic
call
Saul. Oh my
better
gosh,
call
Nordic
Saul
please.
Lawyerson.
Oh my gosh.
Lawyers?
So
all right, move
Nordic
on.
said,
This is going to be a rabbit hole. Move
Your
on.
Honor, this incantation was illegally spun, and
Your
that
Honor,
way the enchantress
my
has
client
no claim
did
here.
not knowingly pick up an axe with a Trinity symbol on it. He did it because he had to cut trees down, and now this man is committed to being a superhero for the rest of his life. I want him out of the contract. He didn't understand what he was getting into.
I guess you could read it as that, because Thor, it's not I mean, like, Thor can enchant things. Like, we find this out in the finale. I guess you could read it like that, and I see how that fits. On the other hand, the same, it's magic. It doesn't matter, right?
Yes.
But
right.
to me,
right.
It
Arguing
doesn't matter. It's
semantics,
magic.
basically. Yeah, but
But at
Let's
the
not think
same
about it too hard.
time, though,
this is magic, people.
Yeah, but
although
at the same
there are
time,
people out there that are like, excuse me, actually.
Oh, I know. And they're going to be like, well, it says in this magic incantation, Michael.
According to magic.
Magic the Gathering. But to me, when Jane actually goes to New Asgard and it like activates near her, like the hammer could have gone to her at any time to protect her. Like, that's the part that I was like, oh, like,
that's true. That's a fair point.
After they showed that montage, I was like, oh, is she just going to call the hammer and that's why? But like, no, she goes there, the hammer senses her, and then it's like, okay, time to get the boys back together and gets all the pieces.
Unless it's a cancer detecting hammer, which there's so many questions that I have with that. So,
there's a lot happening.
Which are not great.
Well, the fact that the hammer was not helping that process at all didn't really do much protecting.
Oh, I mean, there's so many metaphors to unpack there, but I'm gonna stay focused.
Brian. Okay, Brian.
Oh, there's this. Okay, I'm gonna stay focused.
Yeah. Okay, let's finish this.
The main point being, though, she reassembles the hammer. Like she's the one. Thor, Odin's son, cannot do that.
Correct.
Like,
true.
So she is worthy to reassemble it and figure that out. So like that was how I interpreted it. But now that you're saying that, like, when he whispers to it, it's the same symbol that Odin does. Yeah, it's hard not to think of it like that. And I hope it isn't, because it kind of takes a little bit of way from like Jane Foster's journey, in my opinion. But I'm glad we talked about that, because those are two valid interpretations to me.
Yeah.
And it's something that's not it's not overtly hinted at. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't say, hey, Jane, you got this hammer because I said this thing that then I feel like if it did that, then you got to ask the question of what determines if somebody's worthy? Like, what is worth? Because Cap done picked it up, Jane done picked it up. Where does Cap, Jane, and Thor all fall in this big ass circle of like?
I also think there's something interesting here, and I don't want this to be a rabbit hole, but I think so. This is a passing comment. No one has to pick it up, but I think there's something interesting to be said about Thor's relationship with his hammer, and that now that it's assembled, that like, and how he's searching for a missing component of like, he equates so much throughout this movie, or at least it feels that way to me, that he equates so much in this movie of his worthiness as to whether or not he still has any type of influence or control over that hammer.
Yeah.
So the fact that he can't pull it back from Jane, the fact that he can't influence it in any way, definitely gives off this vibe of like, he doesn't see himself worthy. And he almost puts Jane and the hammer like in the same basket, that when they love each other again, there's this sense of now completeness that comes back to him towards the end of it. So there's a whole other thing there that we could probably spend another podcast trying to unpack.
I thought that they conquered that though. And so maybe that says something about either the questions I have about this or the writing, because I thought that they talked about, hey, it's just a hammer. Your powers come from within. But yet he still seems to be infatuated, maybe not by the worthiness of, although he did do that stupid. I just wanted to double check.
I think it's like an identity thing, right?
Yeah,
like if he sees himself, I mean, he's seen himself. Throughout the whole other iterations up until this point, he's referring to himself as the strongest Avenger. He gets into this whole fucking thing with Hulk about like, well, who's stronger, me or you? And it's like, it's just, there's all of this. And then you go into this movie with that lens going like, no, he still doesn't see himself. He hasn't recovered from that mentally. Like maybe he's moved on to it in a different form, but he feels incomplete. It feels like for a majority of this movie.
I mean, like, this movie to me has been billed like a midlife crisis, and I think it's very Asgardian and Marvel to make this relationship about a man and a weapon. Like, I'm just gonna start there.
This
Like,
is Viking.
okay,
That's Viking Dream World.
right? And so making this thing of like, I've moved on. We killed Thanos. We saved the galaxy. I'm with the Guardians, and I'm finding myself. And then to link that with Jane, I think is like part of this the spokes of this midlife crisis wheel that they built of just like, oh man, that's my ex handling my ex. Like, that's who I used to be. That's who I was. And I remember when I was happy. Like, but right, this movie's also talking about like, you can't go back. Like, things happen and you need to learn how to accept them. And that's one of the things I appreciate about this movie was that it wasn't about finding the old and the new. It was like, no, like Thor needs to like quite literally reinvent himself to where he is satisfied in his own shell and not just being the guy that helped beat Thanos. Like it had to be him as a person. And I appreciated all the positive depictions about that because that's like a really hard process if you're going through a crisis.
For sure.
In life. Well, like, and not just Thor, but also for Gore and for Jane. I mean, and even Valkyrie to a certain point, right? Because
totally agree.
They kind of hint on that a little bit of you're the last one here. You're the only one here. You're holding all of this grief. Which
it's Gore's insult. It's Gore's insults in the back of in the battle in the like in that world. He says like you're the only one left, and you're doing this.
It's Gore because this is where the hard question comes in, right? And this is where I'm teetering with one of the things that I'm having issues with in this movie.
Do it.
Gore has this conversation. Oh, well, Gore has to go through this on his own journey of that because he loses his daughter, right? Loses his daughter. Do you tell him also to, hey, that just happened. You got to move forward. You got to face the reality. Like, that is what you're supposed to say, right? When this kind of stuff happens, you are supposed to say, hey, I know that hurts. That's, you know, that's harmful stuff. You know, I'm sorry that happened to you, but we got to move forward. We got to progress. Instead, he said, well, no, I'm just going to kill not just the God that I serve, but I'm also going to kill all of the following gods at the same time. And Jane is facing death and doesn't want to accept that. So she says, I'm going to go to this thing that's going to help me. And even though it's killing me, I'm still going to dress up and do this thing and Thor is like, well, I need to find myself. So these are all interesting concepts, right? Cool. Let me put that to the side. Here's where I kind of struggle. This movie has and Doug is going to say this movie had a issue with balance of tone.
It has a tone issue.
Oh, it has some tone whiplash.
It has some tone. Yeah, that's a good way to put it, Brian.
It's for example, the goats. When the goats are funny up until a certain point, right? Because when you get to the island and the shadow realm, I wasn't expecting to hear the goats yelling out as they hit the planet. Like, I know that that's supposed to be funny, but this realm is dark. The concept of this movie is what happens when your God doesn't show up for you? Like, or what happens when you've reached the end of your rope? You know, or what happens when I'm facing this situation and I don't know what to do, or I'm having an identity crisis, or I don't know where to go next, or what people want from me. Like all of these questions.
Right.
I don't know if we ever had more than a 5 minute, more than a full scene of addressing these issues emotionally from each character.
Or even on the boat. Here's another great example, like without the goats, but like that's a great point. But here's
the goats example. Is nitpicky. Yeah.
Here's the other example. In one sequence, when they're on the boat and they are headed towards the Gore's planet, Jane has a conversation. They have this conversation, and Jane reveals she has cancer. Then 3 minutes later, 3 minutes later, Korg is talking about how Cronins make children.
Yes.
And for me, I'm sitting here like, wait a minute, go back like 3 minutes.
Yes.
Go back and let's just spend a minute on. I'm sorry, what? Like you don't. There's no. And Brian, you're tone whiplash. I keep cut. That's such a great phrase because there's no time for you to process the tone that you're in before it changes. And that's fine, but it's hard to those more serious beats. I don't think they lose their impact because those are serious. Those are serious things. but they are hard to process.
I think it goes to show you that it's a really hard thread to needle. Like it's incredibly difficult for a filmmaker. I think from a metaphor perspective, I think as someone that has personal experience with people getting cancer diagnosis, beating cancer, also passing away from cancer, like that part vibed for me in a way of just like, that is sometimes how it goes. Like because Jane keeps talking, like, when I tell people, they get weird and they treat me differently, and that's not what I want for my final moments.
For sure.
And like that part, I felt like whether it was the intent or not, what I took away from it was Jane trying to be like, I gotta tell him, like, I'm literally, I have the same power set as him. I'm wielding the hammer. We're going on this galactic adventure. I need to tell him, like, I need to tell him for us to be okay. But even when she does tell him, she's not okay. And I felt like as a metaphor, like, yeah, that's kind of how it goes sometimes when you're telling people about a sickness you have. However, here's my thing with that. It really feels, this can be a bigger issue. This feels like the bare bones cut of this movie. Like, this 100%. Feels like Taika made a 3-hour epic, and somebody was like, you absolutely cannot have a 3-hour Thor movie, and it needs to, like, you need to condense it. And I think like casualties were had, and I believe that conversation is longer. I bet they shot a bunch of stuff, and they just needed to keep moving the story. So get them on the boat, get them to the planet. Don't worry about that conversation, because who's going to care in 2 seconds when they're trapped in the Shadow Realm? Like, I think that's what was happening.
So hard. That's so hard.
Brian, it's a 4-hour cut according to some sources.
No, you must be joking.
He said they cut scenes and planets, and he said he's not doing a director's cut.
Well, good, because if I had started hearing about we need the Waititi cut, I would have been mad. I'm tired.
Everybody kiss my ass.
I am blown.
It's not even a Snyder thing. It's just every time. It's not even like a Snyder thing. It's just every time some director says, "Well, I had to make choices." It's like, "Well, I want to see it without the choices." It's like, "Well, tough shit. This is the movie you got." Well, because again, Snyder is the exception, not the rule.
Yeah.
That's a situation that can't be compared. This is, hey man, you can't have a 4-hour Thor movie.
I mean, but you could.
You could. There is something to be said, though, that this is the shortest MCU movie on record. It's under 2 hours.
That seems right.
It's one.
They get right to the point. They get this movie feels like the skeleton of a script. Like it touches all of the points that it's supposed to, and it says, here's this part, here's the things we need to address, and it gets right to it. And you got to move on. I don't know if I'm a fan of it, because then I have a question of how are you going? Superheroes are complex. So how do you continue to tell these stories and knowing what to cut and what not to cut?
Are you like the interwebs of the MCU and how all these stories link up? Yeah.
Well, even some of your villains, I think you had, Gore, fucking Christian Bale, man. Like that dude,
amazing performance.
Brought it.
Yeah.
There is, this story is very different. There are overlaps to the comic book source material, but dude, he walked right off a page. Like he was like the way I envisioned that, it was so well done.
I would even take it a step farther and say that I enjoyed this interpretation of Gore more than what I read on the page. Gore was in the comics is this brute and skilled fighter and just like full of vengeance. Fine, cool. I've seen that before, whatever. But Christian Bale brought this like creep element to it of just like, it wasn't just this like another flying brick villain that's impervious and can get everywhere. He looked like a twisted monk with like black ooze always coming out, and you're not sure why, and it makes you uncomfortable. And he comes from the shadows and he kills your gods. Like it sounds like a bad bedtime story rather than a villain, which is rad, by the way.
Yeah, and the other thing is that what I think the nuance that he brought is that he wasn't all fighting all the time. Like he stood back and he strategized. He waited like a methodical, killer, like a serial killer, to wait until his shot and then he moved on. Like, it wasn't about doing the most damage, which is what we typically get with these villains. They don't come in and do the most damage. This is like, no, I have one person here that I'm trying to get. When we get him, we're done. Like, that was well done.
And I saw a critique of, like, basically, we didn't see him butcher any gods. Like, that's weird. And I'm like, well, kind of, I guess, but like, this villain isn't like, I mean, if you want that, there's like, I have 30 Marvel movies for you. Like, Ultron alone killed so many people. Like,
also, keep in mind, there was a cut. There's an extended cut of this where it is very well possible he did do all of that.
Like, I have to believe they did.
They had to have.
What would that have done for you? Like what? Like what would seeing that have done?
I will defend it though. I will say that I think if you did add another component of how merciless he was, and like in his pursuit of killing gods, like, it's one thing to show gods already killed, that he's already taken down, but it's another to show how he does, like how he did it, or the emotion behind it. And I think that kind of goes, for me, this is just me, it goes into like the balance of tone. Like, if I see more of Gore and he is the serious, there is no funny shit happening with him when he's killing gods in all his scenes.
Even the time he tries to be funny, it blows up in his face and it's terrifying.
And with the cutting the eel, right? So like, if there were like a couple, maybe like one more scene or two or 1.5, maybe he meets all the gods in Omnipotent City and he kills a few there, that would have shown how merciless he was in that sense, and then you can balance out the rest of the tone for the movie. So I will defend it in that case.
That's fair. Maybe he could have done that with the sequence where they're looking at recorded distress calls. I'm sure that if you zoomed in on one of those, you would see it. I'm sure they've scanned through so many.
I mean, and maybe this, no, I don't know, but maybe this was a Taika decision with his style of just like, what's that going to do? We're just going to move on and get to the main beat. But I was shocked because I feel like MCU formula like would dictate, let me put it this way.
At least one.
Phase 1 through 3 formula would dictate that Sif, you would get at least a 10-minute sequence of Sif being at the site and being like, something's wrong, and then just seeing everybody annihilated around her. You'd give Sif her 5-minute fight scene with Gore being like, tell Thor I'm gonna kill everybody, and then that feeds into like the distress call. I feel like that's what they would have done if this was like a phase 1 through 3 movie. And what it feels like now is these creators are really trying to shake it up, which I do appreciate, because we didn't expect this part, but it moved on. For better or for worse. And I'm not saying, I don't know. I just found it strange. That's all. I don't need it. I thought that was a curious decision to make.
Even the Lady Sif scene was made a joke that she lost her arm, and maybe your arm made it to Valhalla. And I understand how that could be funny, but all the times that we've seen Sif, the last time we seen it, was in Loki? And she was
technically
in Loki, right?
Well, technically, because they brought her out of the time stream. Technically.
Right. Yeah. So like, every time we see her, she's the ultimate warrior. This time it was kind of made like a joke. So I just wanted some more. That's my one thing about this, is I wish that and I don't know, there's a lot of talk on TikTok about the development of Thor and his character. And some people like it, some people don't. Some people hate it. And I could see where they're coming from, because I have the same issue with Hulk. So I just feel like that Hulk's development is not the best for the character that we know. And I don't know if Marvel is over Disneyfying these characters to sell a movie. I don't know. I don't know if that's something that we need to talk about right now, because even with it goes back to Moon Knight. Moon Knight is going to be the most aggressive and the bloodiest shit we've ever seen. And then we watch it, and I don't see nothing that screams. He blacks out every time and shows up with red stuff on his hands.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
So that's why Thor is one of the strongest Avengers. And is he moving backwards? Is he just a dunce all of the time? Like, Thor is not a dummy. I don't think so. But y'all didn't get a feeling of like he just felt like he was just stupid.
I think he's.
Okay.
This is where, if I could explain his character arc, this is the way that I feel about it. Is that in Thor and Dark World, he is very, I take myself too seriously, right? Like 100%. I take myself too seriously. Life is meant for me to be a leader. It's for me to be king. And that is the only thing that matters. And then we get to Ragnarok, and that identity is shaken because of his dad leaving. And now it puts him into crisis. And he's put in his all of it is put into this crisis where now he is off world on a planet he's never been, trying to make sense of it. And so I think that his arc is he's starting to realize that life is more nuanced than just I need to go out in glorious battle. And I think that there are times where we're so used to that being the default for Thor, even from a comic book interpretation. That's most of the time the iteration is he speaks more nobly. He's always seen as this sort of like the battle is the most like important thing that you could have, and making sure that it's an honorable one and that type of thing. And then now we're seeing a version where it's like, no, that's not necessarily a realistic, that's not the way life works. And so we're seeing life collide with our superhero, I think, a little bit.
And I think, not to like pat themselves on the back more, but like I think with Endgame, that's one of the beauties of it. And you have this broken Thor, and like stuff happens in your life. I'm not like some wise old sage, but like I've seen some stuff, and like I've seen people also go through some stuff, and like Thor's reaction to basically like not taking out Thanos the first time sends him into this spiral. And as he comes out of it, he needs to find himself. So I don't really think it's goofy. It's him just understanding like, I did this. It didn't get me anywhere. In fact, it made me lose my mom, my dad, my brother, my like physical, literal city. Like it's made me lose all this stuff. And what did I get for it? I'm stuck on a beach in Norway playing video games. Like, I vibe with that as somebody that
makes sense.
I'm not a king. I'm not a god of thunder, but like, I know what it's like to be told like, hey, if you do these things, you will attain these rewards, and you just need to stay on the path. And that's exactly what Thor did. And then he got to the point where it actually didn't matter. And instead of getting these rewards, he had everybody taken away from him. So like,
and let's remember the plot of Ragnarok here too. The entirety of Thor 1 and 2, the best thing in his mind is to be king of Asgard. And by the end of Ragnarok, Asgard is fucking gone. Like it's just not there. So the one thing that he's been told by Odin from the beginning is being a king isn't like that. If you're going to rule this realm, which is the best thing that you can do and the highest accomplishment that you can have, that ain't, and now he'll never achieve it because it's not even like a place. There's some consequences from that.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, y'all made two really good points.
If I may, for a moment, take a brief pause in our discussion, and I'd really like to talk to Russell Crowe directly for just a moment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, please.
All right,
Marcus,
Doug to Russell Crowe
on the main screen.
Oh God.
Oh, here it is.
Russell, the next time that you get cast as, I don't know, Zeus, or
I don't know. I think I'm gonna like what you're gonna say.
Pick any god. You don't have to do an accent in order to play them.
What accent was it?
I think it was.
Have you ever walked into a stereotypical Italian restaurant and heard a man speak? Or have you ever had a friend that says like, "That's the spicy meatball"? He did that for his whole interpretation of Zeus. And so Russ, please don't do that again.
Wow, how dare you?
Loathed it.
How dare you?
That fucking accent made me so mad.
It was bad.
I dissent. I dissent from this Thruple.
Brian, would you like to get into a solo? Would you like a solo layout?
No, I don't need a soapbox, but like the dude was doing a hammy Greek accent to like just really focus up that like Zeus is not this good guy that we've all thought of him
It
as some
made his
benevolent god.
dialogue
Like
unintelligible. There were times he spoke, and I was like, "What the fuck did he just say?"
Yeah. There were times he was like he would talk at times, and then his tongue would like you could see his tongue like hitting the top of his roof. Like it was like, I like, all right.
That post credit scene is where you can really hear it because he's trying to say something, and he's like, like I just didn't get it at all. I was like,
it was better. I liked it more in the post credit scene than I did the entire time of him talking.
Oh, sure.
Because it was at a lower tone. He was more serious. And I was like, oh, okay, this is like a serious tone. I just didn't like it in the Omnipotent City with the orgies.
Oh my gosh. I think it sold it as this god who's just been too comfortable for too long, being too complacent. I don't know.
Play out that stereotype then. Like he did it to portray a sleazy god, but he also did it in an Italian accent. So does that mean that Russell thinks all Italians are sleazy?
That's not good.
Like, that is not the direction I was going for.
That's not good.
Big Papa Crow, maybe dial that down just a little bit.
I mean, that's Taika though. Like Russell Crowe was told to do that by somebody.
He was told. This is what that feels like. He walked up. They were both at craft services, and Taika walked up. He's like, "So how you think you're gonna play this? How you think you're gonna play Zeus?" Like, I don't know. It's just thinking about doing an accent, but maybe I won't. And he was like, "All right, give it to me. What do you got?" He went for it. He's like, "Quit drinking. You hit oil. That's perfect." Like he didn't even try to like find it at all.
Nobody else says that except for Doug. You hit oil.
I've never heard that phrase before.
Quit digging. You hit oil. Yeah. I like this movie. I just kind of want to give a brief overview of the things I like because I think you should watch it for yourself. Obviously, that's the thing that we always say here is like go watch it for yourself. I think that they balanced all of these characters well. For the majority of this movie, it's a 3-person lead, it feels like. Like it's Tessa Thompson,
handing it off.
Jane Foster, and Thor himself. And God, what is his name?
Christian Bale.
His rock friend. Well,
Korg.
Korg, but also Christian Bale. Christian Bale comes. I don't count him because I'm talking about those scenes where it's all 3 to 4 of them at the same time, and that's a lot of personalities that you like. That's a lot of people to balance, a lot of stories to tell at the same time, and like a lot of emotion. So I think that they did really good with balancing this. My joke was, I feel like he based this movie, Taika, off of his throuple with Rita. Alleged throuple with Rita Ora and Tessa Thompson. Like it feels like he was on the balcony after those pictures came out of Rita Ora, Tessa Thompson, and Taika. He went and was like, I could make a movie about this, except with hammers and people.
Okay, and I feel like we need to talk about just how like I'm trying to find the right word, but man, this felt like a movie that. If they were like, you know what, we're all in a poly relationship. Actually, we're all dating each other, including Korg. I would have been like, yes, that is a logical conclusion for this movie. Yes, given the vibes I'm getting from here. There was and feel free to call me out, but like the vibes between Valkyrie and Mighty Thor. At the beginning, it was like, we got to stick together. And I was like, oh, okay, it's like a buddy cop thing. And then they had this like back and forth comedy thing. And I was like, am I getting romantic tension a little bit? Maybe not.
Let me slide in here real quick. Let me slide because
into my DMs, okay?
I'm going to slide right into your DMs because on TikTok from the LGBTQ plus community, it was said that there are a lot of queer undertones in this movie that
I 1000%.
I saw that after I watched Thor: Love and Thunder, and I said that makes perfect sense. I don't know what it was. If it's the throuple tone where this could go any which way. It could be Thor and Valkyrie, Valkyrie and Mighty Thor, Mighty, you know what I mean? Like that's kind of how I felt. So I really felt like Taika did his thing and was like, I want to write from personal experience and write this goddamn movie. Which
it certainly felt that way.
You got to beat it for that. Like, damn, like, go ahead, get your shit off, man. I ain't mad at you. Like,
that
and
there's
a
way.
moment. There's a moment on the boat where they're talking about the 6 space dolphins, and they're like, oh yeah, those 6 space dolphins mate for life. By the way, when that line is said, you have Thor, Mighty Thor, Valkyrie, Korg, and the 2 Thor weapons on the boat.
Yes.
I'm not saying the weapons are a part of the poly relationship.
It certainly
but
feels
they
that way.
kind of are.
They are
and
the
I
tools.
was like, is that what you want me to take away from this? Which, by the way, great. 6-person relationship in the MCU. Great. Let's do it. Move it forward. Let's go. Let's go blow, somebody's mind. Like, let's go for it. But that's not the direction
what I
it went.
expected you to say.
Not that I expected it from Disney, but yeah, those undertones were kind of erupting. Like, which is why I think, all right, I'm just going to get into this now. Tessa Thompson, I know you're never going to listen to this, but you might. I don't know how anybody could watch your performance of Valkyrie and get to the third act and say, you know what this movie doesn't need? Tessa Thompson.
Yeah.
And I don't understand that decision. I don't know who made it. I don't understand it, but you deserve better.
You talking that shit.
You deserve a Disney Plus series, your own movie. I don't care. Like the Valkyrie you have illustrated for us is so much fun.
That's my Valkyrie.
And to not even have her play a role in the third act is not only bonkers, but just like such an absence that I don't know why you would do that. Anyway, that's me saying more Tessa Thompson.
I will also say more Tessa Thompson because, goddamn, I mean, in the most respectful way possible, and I genuinely mean this.
To understand
this woman.
Every time this woman came on screen, Marcus did not do it loud enough that the entire theater could hear, but he did it loud enough that I could hear. And Marcus would say, like, I would be sitting there and he'd just be like, "Ooh, shit." Like, just like, or you'd hear, "God damn." Like, it's just quietly to himself in my peripheral audio. And I didn't say anything, but by the third time, I was like,
you and every warm-blooded man and woman.
I just want to let you know, she could have said anything in this movie. She could have had the voice of the goats this entire movie with her face and it's her energy and her ambiance. When she's the king of fucking Asgard and she's wearing that pantsuit and sitting on the throne, do you know how sexy you gotta be to rock a pantsuit? There's nothing like in traditional what's quote unquote sexy. You gotta show some skin or you gotta, you know what I mean? Like if you gotta walk, she literally was rocking a full suit.
Yes.
She made that look. Her whole swagger throughout this whole thing is incredible. But also, props to what Brian was saying. I want to boost that some more because a lot of times you do get characters that were unnecessary. That was like, well, you didn't really need that person here, or why was that person here the whole time? And Tessa Thompson was not that. I do agree. It's kind of weird that you go a whole movie with all three, and then in the final scene you go the only two.
Yep.
But I get you got to have that mighty Thor moment, I guess. I don't know.
I mean, I guess if I'm allowed to expand on this, I think it's also for me, it's like a representation thing. We don't have a lot of we don't have a lot of queer women of color in really big blockbuster movies. And I just, not that like I don't think movies are going to save us or like, this is like the pinnacle of entertainment, but like, I don't know. It just really bums me out that on such a big stage, you had an opportunity for Tessa Thompson to show that with this character that is well liked, by the way.
We don't get a lot of queer sex symbols, Brian. Like usually those are straight white people.
I mean,
it's usually the way they're billed, and this is pretty incredible that she stepped into this role and wore it. And
I don't know, where do you put Prince?
I'm saying like typically in cinema, like when I'm booking an action movie, like the easy low hanging fruit is Transformers. What was Megan Fox's role?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, and so it's
achieved the same result, but Tessa Thompson, and I was like arguably more attracted at that point.
Well, and I just feel like what she brings to the role in her pure charisma, she's driving like the second act in Omnipotent City. It's not either of the Thors. It's her driving it and getting it to a point to like move the plot. So it's just even more bizarre now that I'm talking about it, that like you have this plot driver that you immediately sideline, which that whole scene feels like a reshoot because she's like, yeah, I lost my kidney. And he's like, bummer, bye. Like,
yeah,
it just something feels off, and maybe she was involved in the third act, and maybe they cut it, but it feels like here's what it feels like. It feels like there was a romance subplot that was cut for Valkyrie, not like I'm on first name basis with her, but like friends. There was a Valkyrie romance subplot cut. There was a Valkyrie combat action sequence cut, because she could have easily been in the Eternity Realm. That's what I'm calling it. I'm not saying that's the name, but that's just what I'm calling it for the purposes of this discussion. Like, she could have been there
where you make the wish.
Where you make the wish. Like, she could have easily been there and been part of it. Anyway, that's my biggest gripe of this movie. And if that's my biggest gripe, that I want more of it, that's kind of an indication how much I liked it. So, but I just needed to say that into this space, because like, that's almost criminal that you had someone perform that well and then be like, nah, end of the game, we're taking you out. Sorry, you're benched. Like, just bizarre.
I do think that we are going to get more of her. And I think we're going to get more of her, and we're going to get more of Jane Foster at some point. Because rumor on the street is, and not to give too much, if you're really conscious of post-credit scenes, please stop now, because I'm going to reveal a big one. The second post-credit scene is Jane Foster showing up to Valhalla and saying like, meeting Heimdall and that type of thing.
Which Idris Elba out of nowhere,
with dreads.
Yeah,
I love that.
There is rumor on the street that they may end up going a storyline with this where Jane Foster gets reincarnated as a Valkyrie. By Odin.
I saw that.
And if that's the angle they go with it, then I could see a buddy cop style movie where it is Jane Foster and Tessa Thompson, Valkyries, and it's with Z instead of an S. Valkyries, and it is that type of movie.
I mean,
I like it. I have another request. I wouldn't mind that, buddy cop. Don't mind that. Maybe it's a short series, maybe not a movie, but maybe it's a short series. I would also like to see Valkyrie with Okoye and the rest of the Wakanda warriors, because she doesn't have a team anymore. So my pitch would be that you take her to Wakanda and you have maybe this moment of being with the what the name of the
Dora Milaje?
The Dora Milaje, thank you. The Dora Milaje, and just having this training montage or whatever the case it is, and having her fit in there and just go to war with them and battle with them just for like a little bit. I don't know what that looks like, but I would be interested in that.
I feel like I think what's weird is that because they don't do these huge contracts anymore, there's no clue when those characters will show up. Maggie is the one that actually knows Mighty Thor a little bit better than me. I shouldn't say that. This is not a surprise. Like, she likes the character on her own. And as we walked out, of the theater, she's like, "Well, Jane does become a Valkyrie," and I was like, "I'm sorry, what? Like, you're telling me a what now? Hey, there's a Valkyrie in the mix?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, like that's totally why they want you to know she's in Valhalla." And maybe they don't have anything planned, but at least they have the option down the road that like, oh, hey, by the way, so like if you're in Valhalla, you can be reincarnated. Sweet, let's go. So that I thought it was just a nice epilogue, because I assumed Natalie Portman was like good on MC, like, because the only reason she came back was because of Taika's success with Ragnarok. So I just kind of figured she wanted to like do it once and call it a day. Yeah, maybe, but I mean, the Marvel paychecks, like they keep paying. Like, this made $300 million in 3 days. Like,
it did.
I kind of get it if you want to buy another house or something, for sure. If you're like the ultra wealthy, if you're like, if I just stay with this character for 5 years, I can buy that super yacht that I've always wanted.
Because then my other yacht can go inside it. I do want to leave enough time, because I think Marcus is fatigued. I think Marcus
we should talk about the meta stuff. Should I say, is there anything about specific just to this movie that we want to touch on? Like maybe something we didn't talk about or anything like that?
I like the Thor scene with the kids. I really did enjoy that. I really did enjoy that. I think that I think this movie is good. I think there are obviously things that people are going to want more of, and then for some people just liked it the way it was. I'm interested to see how it connects the Hercules end credit scene to.
Motherfuck, I want to know how they connected that.
Roy Kent from Ted Lasso is Hercules.
Yeah. So I'm just interested to see what
questions.
Is the next movie Hercules and Thor, because Taika said he already wants to come back as long as Chris Hemsworth wants to come back. So obviously they have
very well. And at the very end, they leave it with a black screen that says Thor will return.
They did.
So they've okay.
So
the one thing I wanted to say, I really liked the Guardians of the Galaxy's vignette. It did not overstay its welcome, and it was perfectly set. And I felt like it rewarded people who were like, who have watched all the movies and were like, yeah, we left him with the Guardians. What does that look like? And I got just enough. And that's really hard to do because I thought the Guardians were actually going to stay longer. And they didn't. And it was just right. So anyway,
and who would have thought that? Who would have thought it was Star-Lord that was going to be the one to deliver the message of like, stuff has to suck, like, you know what I mean? Like, it has to hurt, like that type of thing. I did not expect that message.
I did like Chris Pratt in this. Not that I don't typically like him, but I did feel like he did a good job in this.
He didn't go full Chris Pratt, which I feel like was the strength here. I also, by the way, Nebula, like I feel like she steals every scene that she's in. Karen Gillan, I think, is an incredibly talented actress. Anyway, that was enjoyable. And I think that's pretty much. Oh, the last thing I'll say is that even though it's really clumsy and I don't think it's the best delivered finale, I do enjoy that this movie made a very clear distinction of like, if you have one wish to talk to this eternity god, like let the lesson be that you'd want to bring back the person you love rather than just kill more. That worked for me, and it was a different finale for an MCU movie for me. It kind of had like a Doctor Strange vibe to it of like the finale isn't Doctor Strange punching Dormammu in the face. It's outsmarting him. And for this, it was like Thor reminding people like, nah, man, like it's about love. Like, I don't know. I think we'd all use more of a message like that.
All gods aren't the same. That was the other thing too, was like, which I think was a good message to get across from Thor to be like, well, for Thor to witness, man, is this what y'all gods be doing?
Right.
He had to witness that himself. And then to be able to be compassionate, to witness that and then be compassionate enough to make a decision that other gods may not have in that instance.
Well, I think pivoting backwards to our conversation about like arc and development, you took your hulking, at times dim-witted, like meathead, and you said the biggest thing that you can do to beat out the things that are terrible in this world is to be motivated by love. And that is an incredible message coming from the dude that typically, when he was first introduced, was just kicking the shit out of people.
I mean, the first movie, this dude just throws his hammer. Like, there's no way.
And then yells about it later.
And then puts
and is super amped about it.
And I like the title reveal of how it tied into, like, when the end credits came on and it said Love and Thunder, and he was Uncle Thor. I thought all of a child born out of love. I like that was right up my alley.
It's also Chris Hemsworth's kid.
Right. And I was
her
like,
first role, amazing.
Her first role was playing alongside her dad,
which is incredible. Is incredible. But yeah, no, I like the movie. I gave it a 9 out of 10 on the thing. I'm just gonna give it an 8 in this. Okay. So here's what I'm gonna do.
Let's do it. What do you want to talk about, Marcus?
I'm gonna go down my Marvel fatigue. And then I want us to wrap up the podcast by putting phase 4 movies, just the movies. The order. Is that what we did?
Okay.
Oh no, keep whatever you got, Brian.
I'm gonna get the movies.
Keep whatever
in order.
you keep whatever you have. No. Keep whatever you got.
You can just delete the shows.
Keep whatever you got.
I can delete the shows. Right.
So here's where I'm at with it. I have Marvel fatigue, but also Brian has pointed out some things. And TikTok, Twitter, and the internet has pointed out some things, and some things continue to come out that I feel like I was right about. Okay. So number one, my biggest gripe with the last couple things we've watched has been the CGI. Okay. And every time that I've said something about CGI, I have been told, not just from y'all or from y'all, but from other people, no, Marcus, you're tripping. The CGI looks fantastic. Even my brother says it like, oh, it's incredible. You're blah, 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 blah.
I've been the biggest virtual effects apologist to Marcus. Like, I'm like, no. Like, it'll get better. It's gonna look great. Like, I have been the biggest person to apologize on behalf of Marvel to Marcus directly.
Y'all should pay this man.
I will own that I have been defending their virtual effects team.
And so it came out from, I think it was GameNerd.com. I think I took a screenshot of it. There was an article.
I'll find it.
Oh, thanks. There was an article that came out, right? And it said how Marvel basically is the hardest company to work for visual effects.
Yep.
Because of their crunched deadlines, their impossible deadlines is what it was said. And then there's a lot of people that, they have a lot of breakdowns about the relationship that Marvel has of asking these impossible expectations and the pressures that come with it, which then ties into when I was talking about Moon Knight, there was something about the CGI that was off. And then when I was talking about She-Hulk, there was something off with the trailer in She-Hulk. And then even I was looking at Thor: Love and Thunder, the helmet stuff, there was off about the helmet at times where it just felt too CGI instead of a practical helmet that they put on the people, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That's one. So, Marcus, I just feel like that just needs to be addressed. And I don't know if we want to have a conversation about these impossible deadlines and all of this, or how we feel about it.
I will say, I think the only thing that I have to contribute to this is that none of it is surprising. I mean,
of course.
Yeah.
Given the way that the past year, so I'll include from July of 21 through July of 22 has gone Marvel wise. I mean, we've had 22, like what feels like 20 different projects in a 12-month time span. And given the fact that the nature of the movies that they shoot are low on practical effects, high on virtual renders, it's hard not to, again, none of it's surprising. I'm not surprised that they've had a hard time keeping up. They've been going at a breakneck pace for the past year. Mm-hmm. So none of that is surprising.
Brian?
I think it's really hard for me not to like break into like my collectivist self, because like this is like a labor issue. Like, and if you're telling me that like Thor: Love and Thunder comes out in December instead of June because some people get fairly compensated for their work and they get to see their family, fine. I don't care. That's perfectly fine. Like, because I think it's unethical to push these people on contract work when they know they have the superior product. And that's, I think, where a lot of this stuff is coming from. And this is coming from what we're quoting from thegamer.com. It was written by Rihanna and Bevan. VFX artists are refusing to work with Marvel, is the start of the title there. And it's just, it makes me feel really gross because obviously Disney Marvel is using the bully pulpit of like, well, we're good for the money. Like, these movies make bonkers money. We'll pay you. Just do what we say. And because of that, they feel like they can do whatever they want, whether it's like, hey, we want 3 sequences by next week, or redo this sequence. And like, that's crummy. Like, you shouldn't treat people like that. And obviously there's a timeline because all the projects line up, right? Like, one project is related to everything. So it makes me feel crummy. And like, honestly, if it takes a general strike for Marvel to figure it out, like, I'm good. I don't need a Marvel movie every 3 months. Like, y'all figure it out, because that's not worth it to me.
Well, and I think the other thing, Brian, is that it's shocking to me that Disney has not given Marvel a team. You know what I mean? Like,
that's the other thing that some people pointed out.
It's odd to me that you've essentially said, like, hey, you have to hire all of your virtual effects people as contract employees. Like, if this is so important, hire your fucking own staff and benefit them and be done with it. Like, if it's that pay for itself long term, then that's a investment that will pay you back dividends in the long run. It's shocking that they don't do that.
Well, and I think somebody probably did a spreadsheet analysis and a spider graph on Excel, and they got in the boardroom and they did the cost breakdown, and they're like, hey, we can still like nickel and dime these contractors for longer before it's cheaper for us to build the infrastructure where we're doing it in-house. But I do think it's weird because I guess it's kind of strange to me because it's like you would have direct control over this if it was in-house. You can make your own Marvel house, whatever you want to call it, but like it would stand next to Pixar and all that other stuff and create a name for itself.
But can you meet your own expectations? Because if you do it in-house, like, I mean, if I do it in-house, if it's Marcus versus Marcus, then Marcus is to blame. And
wow, that's deep. I like it.
Thank you. But I just feel, I don't know if does Marvel want that responsibility, or do they just want to, what is Marvel? I don't want to get down this. I don't know. So I'm just asking.
Do it.
What is the role of Marvel in this MCU? Is it just to connect the dots and tell the stories and have somebody else do the visual? Is that something they just don't want to worry about in general? But if I have to do it in-house and She-Hulk trailer goes to shit, am I still a reliable company, or is that something that, as opposed to having the freedom to then point the finger at somebody else?
Here's what I'll say, and here's my one, like, almost like fire back to that is your whole company was founded as being an animation studio.
I agree.
Don't fucking tell me that you can't, that you're not going to own it. Like, you have Pixar in your back pocket. Like, don't tell me that you're not comfortable owning it. And my guess is that they probably talked to Lasseter and they said, like, why does it take you so long to do a full-length feature when it comes to your virtual effects work? And he was like, well, if to do it right, it needs to be rendered and it takes a long time. And they're like, well, if we just contract it out and we keep them always moving and always working, then we don't have to worry about that delay.
If you're always under the threat of like, I don't know if you're going to get the next gig, then you
have incentive to respond. You have incentive
to, because good work is rewarded with more work.
In this case, 100%.
That's a Doug Wagner original right there.
That is, because if you do a good job and in your crunch time, you turn some shit around in 24 hours and you got it to me and it was a success and a hit and nobody has any complaints about everything, guess who I'm going back to the next time?
Well, and I feel like this is a movie podcast, but for anybody this matters to, like, this is why boundaries are like super important. Like, because like this is why people on Reddit are like, I'm not working with Marvel anymore. I'm setting this boundary because they've been used and abused to the point where the money isn't worth it. And I feel like if you're willing to like forego Marvel money, which is like a sure thing, that says something about how terrible the process is. And it's for your own job too, of setting boundaries of like, I can get this back to you tomorrow. And they're like, what about today? And you're like, I can do it tomorrow.
And even a step further, Brian.
9 times out of 10, people are gonna be like, okay.
Even a step further, Brian, is from being at C2E2 and listening to the panel that put together the virtual effects work for some of just their like digital screens. Because I went to that, they're fans. Yeah, this isn't just like we hired a group of artists. You hired a group of artists who were like, holy shit, I get to help make Moon Knight's costume. That's so cool.
Which happens on TikTok a lot.
Well, I love the character. And now they're sitting here being like, oh, this thing that I love is now hurting me and I don't like it. And ladies and gentlemen, that is the definition of a toxic relationship. When the thing you love is hurting you, like, you need to reevaluate what's going on. So kudos to the people who are turning it down and backing out. But yeah, Marvel's going to have to fix this or otherwise Disney and its subsidiary Marvel is going to have an issue.
I don't feel like it's reached a level like where they need to be concerned yet, because it's like a few Reddit posts, right? But I do think go ahead.
I was gonna say big term PR though, like with all the other shit that's going on with Disney, do they need, especially since they're trying to prop themselves up as being the David to Florida's Goliath in some way, shape, or form, like they need to keep a clean sheet. Because it's going to be real fucking easy for all of their critics down here to say, oh, you guys, you are such a friendly company and you love families. What about John Smith, who's a virtual effects person who you treat like a slave? What about that, Disney? And they're going to be like, fuck. Well, they're going to be pissed.
to Marcus's point, though, like I think maybe the proof is in the pudding. I didn't notice the Moon Knight CG. I didn't notice it, and maybe it's because I don't have an eye for it. I know a lot of people talked about the She-Hulk stuff, and then everything. I shouldn't say everything, but I know there was some critiques of some of the Thor stuff too, with the helmets specifically. So it's like 3's a trending pattern, and if
your latest 3 at that.
Well, so remember there's some complaints about the Miss Marvel stuff too.
Yeah, like, and so I'm not saying like online is real life, but there is a clear pattern, and if your quality is suffering, something's got to give. And I think this transitions and dovetails into our other point of just like the amount of Marvel properties put out in the past year is dizzying.
Quality over quantity.
Nauseating.
So, to the next point. All right. I don't want to be here too long. Oh, all right. That was,
To the wall.
Great transition. I want to put this up.
To the sweat drip down my balls. Go ahead.
No. Oh, wow. Wow. All right.
I'm in Florida.
So, this is...
Marcus, what do we got?
So, for those on the Patreon, and for those that are going to watch this later, I have the original timeline for Phase 4, and this was pre-COVID.
This is pre-COVID. This was released in 2019.
Thank you. Released in 2019. Everybody's on stage, no mask. Everybody's hugging. It's a good times, good vibes. So, Black Widow was supposed to come out May 1st, 2020. Okay, for those keeping track at home. Then, I think this goes up, down. Okay, so then Falcon and the Winter Soldier was supposed to come out fall 2020, right after Black Widow. Eternals was supposed to come out November 6th, 2020. Shang-Chi was supposed to come out February 12th of 2021. WandaVision was supposed to come out spring 2021.
Yep.
Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness was supposed to come out May 7th, 2021.
Jesus.
Loki was supposed to come out spring 2021. And the What If series was supposed to come out summer 2021, Hawkeye fall 2021, and Thor Love and Thunder on November the 5th, 2021. Here is the current release schedule of how things
he made
ended
this
up
himself.
happening.
Shout out to Marcus.
They put this in a boggle.
WandaVision came out. This says January, March 2021 on Disney.
Yeah, you're
Plus.
good.
Yep.
Falcon and the Winter Soldier came out March 2021.
Yep.
Then Loki, June 2021. Black Widow came out July 9th after all of that pushback that happened. Never heard anything else about the case that Scarlett Johansson has against Disney and
well,
Marvel
they
and
settled. They
settled.
Did
they?
They settled.
Yeah,
You'll never hear about it
they
again.
paid her
Makes
tens of
sense.
millions of
That makes
dollars.
sense.
And she signed a airtight NDA, so you will never hear about it again.
Makes sense. So Shang-Chi came out September 3rd. What If came out August 2021. Eternals came out November 5th, which was the original Thor and Love and Thunder date. Only because that's the only one I remember off the top of my head. Hawkeye, November 2021. Spider-Man No Way Home, which wasn't even on the goddamn list, December 17th.
That's because technically it's a Sony production, so
that's
Sony.
right.
Oh,
technically, I'm nitpicking, but that's why.
No. Thank you for that, Brian. That's a good point. Moon Knight came out March 2022. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness came out May 6, 2022. Miss Marvel came out June 2022. And Thor Love and Thunder came out July 8th, 2022.
That is
Jesus.
A shit show. So when Marcus says I have Marvel fatigue, that's because these movies have come out. What did you say, Brian? In the span of 12 months?
Just the movies.
All of this?
Have
just the movies
come out in the span of 12 months.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Not to mention a pandemic on top of that.
Consider Phase 1 when it was like a movie a year, by the way.
Maybe.
It was just the summer thing, and that was it. And like it just kind of feels like we've had Thanksgiving dinner every month.
Right. So much carbs.
Right. That's a good point.
Like, I mean, and here's the thing. I'm still hyped. I must be immune. I don't know what's going on. I can't tell you why. I know some people, though, are good. Like they're like, you know what? I'm just gonna catch up down the road. And I totally understand that because there is no break. There's no breathing point for anything to get hyped because after Miss Marvel, I think we barely have like a few weeks before She-Hulk starts. Barely. And then we got
Jesus.
And then we got Wakanda Forever in November.
Yeah, November.
I can't anymore.
So it's a lot. There's no breathing room.
There's no breathing. So Doug and I had a conversation in the car, and I'm going to try and keep this short. And we may need to postpone the rearranging of things depending on how we all feel on the pod. So Doug and I had this conversation after the movie because I was talking to him about the Marvel fatigue
was
that I had.
quite upset.
Oh, about what?
Scene. The final post-credit scene.
Because up until this moment, I feel like I have been pulled in every direction when it comes to what story is being set up next. You have Thunderbolts, and this goes into the rearranging of the release dates, which I didn't realize till after that conversation, right?
Sure.
So I was upset because you've tried to introduce me to the Young Avengers. You've also tried to introduce me to Thunderbolts, which is being filmed this summer, by the way,
right now.
And then you try to or summer 2023. I think
doesn't matter.
I think it's summer 2023.
It's been announced, and there's
and now it's
news on it.
So I was upset because I felt like Spider-Man No Way Home was going to be the film that answered a lot of our questions about the multiverse.
100%.
And I thought either Spider-Man No Way Home or Multiverse of Madness. And I thought that the biggest thing we needed to conquer or figure out was the multiverse. That's the thing.
Yes,
because we talked about it in Loki. We talked about it in all of these other movies. Variants, this, that, and the third. And everything's colliding into each other. Okay, yeah. And I still didn't get any answers. And then when you show me in the series that you're collecting villains who are direct counterparts of the heroes, I still don't get any answers. And then when you show me and I'm still being patient because I know that they will come. Please keep that in mind. But these are all happening around the same time. You keep introducing Young Avengers to me. Still not getting anything super confirmed about Young Avengers or anything of that happening, but you deliberately introduced them. So I was just frustrated because I felt like the story is Marvel is all over the place with these different concepts. And then you introduce Hercules, a deep dive into MCU
so glad
comic
you brought that
lore.
up, because that's kind of what bugged me. The first post-credit scene bugged me more than the second.
Really?
And I mean, and this is why, and I'll clarify.
Okay, go ahead. No,
really,
go ahead.
I love stingers. I think they're great. They've been Marvel's bread and butter for a long time. They've made stingers a thing. Like they put it on the map and they've done it the best. They still do it the best. The frustration that I have is you just saw it. There were 18 projects that have happened over the past year and a half. So you have to, if you're a fan, have to stay on top of all of that. And then these assholes have the gall to introduce a deep dive comic book character that I don't know anything about. Don't give me fucking homework after you just had that release schedule. Don't give me like now you have to know who Hercules is, because I'm going to go and read it. And my brain barely remembers what I'm supposed to get from the goddamn grocery store without a list. And you're going to be like, hey, hope you remembered your Hercules lore because we're going to reference it. And it's like, y'all, can you just not give me homework? Like, don't give me homework.
Even more. You're introducing,
don't give me homework.
And so here's why I was also upset, because I had this realization in the car, and Doug can tell you. In short, this Marvel fatigue is paralleling with the fatigue I have in life. And this isn't like a dark turn, but it's like I have to go every single day facing bad news after bad news after bad news after bad news. And all I'm looking for is a break. I'm looking for something to connect the dot and tell me, hey, hang in there, buddy. Things are going great. Hey, we're gonna get to the end of the road here, but I just need you to stick in there with me. I know it's
you
bad.
might not know the latest CDC recommendation, but you know where Marvel's going. Like,
well, and not even in that. I mean, in like life in general. If life could give a sign that was like, hey, hang in there. Here's a breath of fresh air for you from all the bad news. Marvel and life were doing the same thing for me. Of damn it, Marvel, I wish you would just give me something to pull me back in. And give me something. If this is the thing that I have to watch consistently, and you're the only ones putting out as much content as you are compared to everything else, give me something that makes me hang on in there. Then when you give me in life, give me something to hang on to when it's shooting after shooting and all of this other bullshit. And it's like life after life after life. I just felt like it was a lot of shit where it was like, I can't take a breather from this. So my escapism is also not offering me a breather. Then where the fuck do I get my breather? Now that's very dramatic, but that was kind of like a summary of the realization I
had. I just want to say, like, I hear you and I feel you, man, because these things, I mean, the most recent incident occurred like 20 minutes away from me. And we knew people that were affected, and this is going to connect, I promise. And I'm going to bring us back to the happy, I promise. And honestly, Thor: Love and Thunder was like this bright point. And I like, movies shouldn't have to anchor that for us in our daily life here, but I knew that it was going to be 2 hours of like these thunder gods just whipping hammers around, and it's going to be a story, and the story's going to finish, and maybe I'll get like a tease of what's to come, and that'll be exciting. And I guess I get it. You want to hang on to something like that. And I totally get it. And I think on the Marvel like side of things, like, here's the thing. I saw a statistic on Twitter, and I can't verify it because I don't know where it came from, but there's over 40 hours of phase 4 right now. Like, and if you just think about that for a second, you have 40 hours and we still don't have a clear idea of where we're going. Our educated guess is Secret Wars. That's where we're at.
No sense.
I still put our money there. And however, the idea that there isn't anything clear to kind of hang on to, or like go back and watch the movies for XYZ, right? Like that was part of the fun of the other ones. I get where that frustration comes from. I think I'm weird in that, like, I trust Marvel. No, I'm not weird. I know exactly what it is. I have this overarching trust in Marvel that it's gonna be all will be revealed at some point with someone walking out behind a curtain. That I'm really okay with the ambiguity right now, and it's, for me, it's fun. Like, because right now what it feels like, the best comparison I can make. Also, I'm gonna do a rundown here, quick statistics. Of the Marvel movies, Shang-Chi is the only one that really advanced the meta narrative. That's the only one that we know there's a concern, there's a homing beacon in the rings. The other one that kind of did was Eternals with the Celestials. We know bad stuff's going to happen, but that's it. Like, that's the only meta narrative. So it feels like a game board that we're opening. It feels like we're opening up a new like board game, and Marvel isn't even setting the board. They're just showing you the pieces because of the rest of the movies. Multiverse of Madness, you get Clea. Thor, you get Hercules. Black Widow, you get Julia Louis-Dreyfus, probably Madam Hydra. And then in Eternals, you also get Star Fox, Harry Styles. They're not providing any content, but they're showing you the game pieces that will eventually go on the board. And so it's like, okay, why are you not setting the table yet? Is that is that part of phase 5, or does it matter, or is that part of it?
What phase are we even in anymore?
It doesn't matter, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And I get worried because, you know, I feel like they felt that because Kevin Feige wouldn't have come out and said, "Don't worry, we're gonna all will be revealed."
I agree.
Yeah. Brian, I think here's the other thing that I'll say, and Brittany actually turned me on to this a little bit. She said that she was reading an article today that talked about like why you shouldn't criticize, in this example, and it was very timely given my location. She said like why a psychologist's reason about why you shouldn't criticize like Disney parents or Disney families or people who are big fans. And she said that the article pointed to like, oh, you motherfucker brought him into this. They said you shouldn't criticize those folks, or really folks of any, and I'll kind of expand this, and it's relevant, trust me. I would expand this to everybody. that's saying like it's a form of escapism. Like, you know, they give you something to believe in. They remind you of all the good things in the world. Like, yeah, is it an arm and a leg to get down here? Yeah, but the joy that you see in some kids of either like seeing their favorite character or just getting to have like a pretzel in Magic Kingdom, like that stuff, like that fills you with like the hope of the world of like things are still good out there that can do that. But I think to kind of bring it on home is it stops being escapism when it becomes too much work. And I think there are just some people out there that are like, this isn't an escape anymore. And that's fine. And that is a valid critique. But I think, I just hope that one, people can find their way to escape in it again. Or if they don't, they give themselves a break, because remember, these are just movies and shows.
Yeah.
They are not the end of your world or the end of life. You can take a break and check in with it later. They're all going to streaming anyway. Like, catch up when you feel like you can, or when you feel like it's clearer. And if you're the type of person like me who feels like it's homework and you're going to do it anyway, because that's the type of person you are, then do what you got to do. But don't burn yourself out pursuing your escape. It's just no longer serves its purpose.
Well, and I agree, and I wow, you said that really well, Doug. Because like I think it's cool. Like, if you have the time and energy, and you're like, I'm all in with MCU, I'm watching everything as it comes out, I'm gonna connect these dots myself. That's great. Go do your like true crime board with red string and pictures, and map it all out. Great, good for you. I just think that, I just told you, like, I'm still in, I'm still hyped, but I can also see the other side of this very easily, that storytelling, like, just my wife can speak to this better. She has a master's in British and English literature. And if we're actually like talking about story, if you would tell anybody else, okay, there's this story and there's like a big overarching story, but you need to watch 40 hours of all these other stories just to understand the main plot of the next story.
You got to read 6 books to understand these 8 books.
Right. That is not good storytelling. So like, Marcus, I get it, where it's like, I've invested my time. I want to see something. Because it is a time investment. And I do think that's why some people are dropping off, where it's like, nah, I'm going to pass on Miss Marvel or She-Hulk, not because I don't think they're good shows, but I have too much and I want to watch other stuff. Like, if good luck if you want to watch Stranger Things, because if you need to catch up on Miss Marvel, if you want to stay plugged into the MCU.
I think that's another fair point, is that the market for streaming content has become so saturated.
Oversaturated.
All of the things now that, remember back in the day, like, we thought streaming was going to be our, like, almost like our millennial, like, fuck you to the cable company, to be like, I'm going to take my time and my money back. And
Doug,
you know what it became?
From me.
It became another cable, because you have to have 4 things to watch all of the stuff you like.
It's still cheaper than cable for me. Let me have
Is it more customizable because you can put your subscriptions where you want them?
Right.
Yes, you do still have a freedom than a cable contract. But it is the streaming content. I mean, there's 4 seasons of hour-long episodes of Stranger Things. And if you miss one, like me, you're kind of left to say, I'm going to catch it when it's finished. It's the same thing.
I'm doing the same thing.
I'm doing the same thing. I totally skipped season 4 because it was too long.
It's fine. And so I just think we are living in times where everybody's eyes, their time, the real estate on our eyes is at a premium. And so it's hard to feel that out and figure it out. So
man, you two had such amazing points. I'm really happy.
So did you, Brian?
Talk about this stuff. Oh well,
look at us.
I'm happy.
We work well together. We work better together.
Hey, happy to be in the room.
This is a great little.
And for those of y'all that are worried about a 2-hour podcast, don't worry. I read articles that said long streaming platform content is the wave now.
Absolutely.
So,
gentlemen,
thank you all for this journey.
Thank you for bringing it up. I'm glad we had time for it. Yeah. But gentlemen, we are at the end of our podcast.
This is it.
What do you all have to plug this week?
I can start us off. Lovenerds.com. Hey, it's summer. We got recipes there. Go check it out. TheLoveNerds.com.
Yeah. Don't forget to follow the mantra, never offended, always humble everywhere in your life. And hey, don't be fooled. Marcus still loves movies and will watch every MCU thing that comes out probably because fuck it. That we have a podcast and this is what we do. And also I love movies and I love the content and I'm gonna play devil's advocate sometime. No pun intended that was also our thing too as well. But shout out to Roman Myers. Honestly, shout out to you, guy. We appreciate you just for being a dedicated listener and also just
100%.
always being willing to just participate with us and give us quotes and put your money on the line. That's going to make us work 10 times harder. That's just dope as fuck, man. So shout out to Roman Myers. Shout out to our Patty family. Shout out to everybody that supports us 24/7, our significant others, our families, etc., etc.
Word. Absolutely. That, to be honest, I don't even have anything because you worded that much better than I ever could. And so listen to the podcast, share us with a friend, whatever you do to support us, we absolutely appreciate. But remember, thank you all for that support. But gentlemen, we have a 3-step process to success. So Brian, please relegate us with the first step.
Hey folks, it's me telling you to read a book. Please, any book, a graphic novel, a short story, maybe a book of poems. Just read something. Find a way to express yourself through the written word because it's going to help you figure out who you are and then explain that to other people. Read a book.
Absolutely. Marcus, what is our second step?
You want to drink some water. Don't be like Gore. Gore's skin was dry as hell. Ashy, that's because he didn't have any water in his life. He was ashy. He couldn't even spit on his elbows if he wanted to. So make sure you are drinking some water and you are staying salivated. Y'all laughing because y'all ain't never been desperate enough. You've been out and realized how ashy you were and you just do this right here. You just lick your palm and rub it on the ash because you just need to get it off of there. Yeah. I don't lick my elbow, but I mean, I'd be a freak if I could reach my elbow and kiss it.
That would be. We'd have to put you in a circus.
That's
act,
like
I think,
that's like tying a cherry stem with your tongue. That's the same amount of freak level.
Oh, Jesus. The last step is, look, y'all. I am in basically a swamp. And the humidity is like
effectively
99%.
Yeah.
And so, you know what the first thing that I do in the morning before I head out to this conference and I'm around other people is I wash my ass because I recognize that to leave days worth of humid ass swass around is not just a disservice to me, but it's a disservice to the people around me. So be like me, wash your ass, and your friends and your family will thank you. So there you have it. That does it for this week's episode of Films in Black and White. We'll be back next week with an episode.
Next week we will do the arranging of things. That gives me time to actually arrange everything. We will absolutely arrange all of the content we've gotten in phase 4. Also follow us on TikTok because I got some more points I wanted to make about Thor Love and Thunder and the addressing of gods. And I wonder how come we didn't address our Western civilization god directly.
I'm very excited to see that.
So, because I want to start an argument in the comments.
I would love to see it. Gentlemen, that does it. And listeners, that does it for this week's episode of Films in Black and White. We'll be back next week with another episode. But in the meantime, in the between time, stay safe, stay healthy. We love y'all. We appreciate y'all. And we'll catch y'all next week.